Leading cause of death and addiction is the drugs and alcohol themselves, right? No brainer. Second leading cause of death and addiction is enabling. And that's why it's so important for families to realize, to recognize, and to change the way that they're dealing with their addicted loved one. And that is the job of an interventionist. We look at everything that's going on and every way that we see how a family is enabling their loved one, actually putting fuel on the fire of addiction. And we can stop that. We can have some change in results. We did an intervention this week where the addicted loved one was actually invited into the process. It was an invitational model of intervention, and we had family fly in. This was a great family, a great all-American family. Put some things on paper like we had asked them to do, and setting some boundaries and telling their addicted loved one how their addiction has affected them and how they've seen it affect him. That the family has some things they want to share with you. Save your response till the end. Just hear them out. And after they've shared what they needed to say, then the floor is yours, right? And then you can say what you want, and then we're done. I can't force you to go to treatment. This is just how we'd like it to unfold. He said, great, cool, thank you. It's all right. So the family was pouring their heart out to their addicted loved one. I'm talking grandpa, a veteran, right? Combat vet, sitting there pouring his heart out to his addicted grandson. And it's just going right over his head. Everything the family said, this guy was just kind of shaking off or even laughing at sometimes, and was completely dismissive. And, it was obvious that he was intoxicated. And I knew as the interventionist that we're not getting anywhere here. This isn't going to end the way we would like it to end. And typically we do interventions in the morning time that catch the individual in a lucid moment. That we could not do that in this case, and it was later in the afternoon, and I knew that we stood a chance of catching this individual when he was intoxicated, and that was the case. So this guy, because he had known that he was going to have this family meeting with his loved ones, he said, no, I'm not going. I don't have an addiction. I'm all good. I beat my addiction. Things are great. I don't need you all. I'm fine. He went about wanting to present actually a presentation through some videos and I don't know, some graphs or pie charts. I don't know, but he had gotten his cord and got his phone and wanted to plug it into the TV. And I'm like, no, I think we're done. I mean, you said what you're going to say. There's no reason to have this presentation. The family's not interested. And the family agreed at that time, and the individual, he left. And, it didn't end with him going to treatment that day, which sometimes interventions do not end that way that day. But the family had set their boundaries, and I consider that a successful intervention because it's what I like to call a rolling intervention, where it's in real time now, and we're acting, we're not reacting, having an experience that he needs to have. So when we were debriefing the family after the intervention, after he had gone and left, they started having some regrets of not allowing him to put on his presentation. And I said to them, and what I made them aware of is that, listen, if you would have allowed him to put on that presentation, what it's showing him is that you're interested in his no, that you're willing to negotiate, that you are not okay with his no, but you're willing to hear his no. That is a form of enabling. That you're entertaining his no, right? That's enabling. It's showing him that, right? And certainly it's not what the family intends. The family has no intention of enabling their loved one, but there's ways that families enable their loved one that is not so obvious. Another way that it's not so obvious, take a spouse, for instance, right? You're engaged in a relationship, a marriage, or a partnership with your significant other, and they're just completely burning it down, right? They're drinking every day. They are not the partner that you married, right? They are not in any way, shape, or form who they resembled when you first married them. Staying in that relationship, or being willing to stay in that relationship as is enabling. When I'm engaged in a relationship with an addicted individual in active addiction, and I'm remaining in that home, or I'm allowing them to remain in that home, and I'm staying united with them, What I'm actually showing them, even though my head may not be thinking this, what I'm actually showing them is that I am okay with this, that I am willing to settle for your addiction, because staying in it is not helping them. And a lot of families think that, man, if I leave him, or I ask them to leave, or we split up, or we temporarily split up and I don't let them see the kids, that it's just going to push them over the edge. That's not true. What it's going to do, it's going to show them in real time of where their addiction has actually gotten them. Because until that point, that addicted individual thinks that you're okay. You just nag a lot, right? You nag a lot, and you complain a lot, and you're always on my case, and that's your fault, but you're willing to stay in this thing with me, and you're okay with me doing what I'm doing because you're still here, right? That's enabling. Also, another way of enabling is holding secrets. And it's really not like you're intentionally holding secrets. This illness has a stigma attached to it still, right? And where if your addicted loved one had leukemia or cancer or diabetes or some other illness, you wouldn't hesitate a second to go to the rest of the members of the family and say, hey, look, Johnny or Sally, this is their condition and this is what we're doing about it. And we thought you'd like to know because you love them and you care for them, and this is what's going on medically with them at this time. But addiction, families don't operate that way a lot of the times. Like, they're going to leave grandma in the dark. They don't want to upset grandma, but really what it's doing is holding secrets of the addicted individual. Sometimes it goes as far as making excuses for their addicted loved one. Why isn't he at family functions, or why is he showing up the way he is, or he or she. So enabling comes in many forms, and if we can really dive down and dissect that and look at how families are interacting with their loved one and change how they're interacting with their loved one and what to do and what not to do, and we can shut that enabling down, what happens is we actually create a willingness in that individual to see, like, man, this is where my addiction's gotten me. Life's not so good right now, and I need to do something about it, right? And the truth is, man, addicted individuals, they love their families, and they actually don't want to be who they are. Like, I can remember in my active addiction, I'd wake up in the morning, man, it feel like a safe was going to fall on my head. Man, it was just like waiting for the world to end. It just had this impending doom in me. And the struggle is that I knew that I was created to be something much different than a bottomed out, pill-addicted crack addict. I knew that in my soul. I knew that I was created to be something different than that. I had no idea how to do it. Yet when my family would ask me, say, hey, you want to go to treatment? I'd be like, no, I've got it. But when my family had enough and they drew a line in the sand and they said, we don't want to be around you, we will not rob you of the experience of jail, and you will never see your children again until you have documented sobriety. They had enough, and they changed the game on me. And what that did is it created, well, A, I didn't want to go to jail that day, but B is that, man, I wanted my kids in my life. And I wanted to be a good dad. I wanted to be a good son. I wanted to be a good brother and a good friend and a good productive member of society. I had no idea how to do that, though. Not a clue how to pull that off. And that was this big conflict inside of me, as I knew that I was meant to be something different, had no idea how to make it happen. And when I would promise my kids and I would promise my family that I wasn't going to walk out of their life again, that I wasn't going to do what I was doing, that I wasn't going to do drugs again, I wasn't going to get high, I wasn't going to go to jail again, I meant it. I meant it at the bottom of my soul. I meant that. But I couldn't pull it off. And as long as my behavior was enabled by my family, there was no way I was pulling out of that. No way. But when they stopped enabling me, the game changed. And it created some willingness in me to want to do something different. And here I am today. I'm a free man. Absolutely free. Look, I'm not a rock star. I'm not, setting the world on fire in movies and adventures. I am simply living in freedom. And that is something that I always wanted when I was in addiction and couldn't get to. And because of my family, because they did what they did the hard work, and they stopped enabling me, here I am in freedom today. I'm very grateful for that. And families oftentimes, most of the time actually, think that if they draw hard boundaries with their loved one, with their addicted loved one, that it's going to ruin the relationship. They're going to be angry with them and they're never going to speak to them again. And the relationship is ruined forever, right? Because when you're in fear, you think always and never, right? Always, forever, and never. That's just where your head goes when you're in fear. And that's just not the case, right? It's not the case. My family and I have a relationship today deeper than I ever could have dreamed and imagined. And I'm able to show up for them today. They show up for me, and we have a great time, right? Now, every family has their stuff, and sure, our family has our stuff too, but it is light years ahead of where we were years ago before I sobered up. Another way that families enable their loved one and not know it, and this goes against the grain of family members, I get it, but it's just the situation that you're in. It sucks that you're in this situation, and what that looks like. If you know your addicted loved one is riding around intoxicated with a carload of drugs and alcohol in the car, beer bottles lying around everywhere, and driving drunk, and you don't report them, that's enabling. That's facts. It's enabling. I mean, if you, any other citizen around you, and you knew that they were getting in the car or their truck trashed and high as gas, and they're riding around endangering the public, you call the police in a second, wouldn't you? But your addicted loved one, you know they're riding around drunk, you know they're riding around high, yet you don't report them. That's enabling. Like it or not, argue if you may, but that's enabling. So you got holding secrets, right, from the rest of the family members. You're allowing them to hold you emotionally hostage, which that's what that individual would have done if we'd allowed him to have that presentation, is to hold his family emotionally hostage there in the living room while he's putting on this PowerPoint presentation of reasons why he doesn't need to go to treatment. Not reporting them when they're drunk driving and driving up and down the road acting all crazy. That's enabling, right? So, there's the obvious, right? You're allowing them to stay in your home. You're allowing them to you're putting fuel in their car. You're paying for their phone bill. That's another thing families struggle with a lot, is moms especially, is they feel like that if I shut that phone off that I'm paying for, that if I shut that phone off, I'm removing the only way for them to contact me. I'm removing that lifeline of, I don't know where they'll be, I don't know where they are, and I need them to be able to contact me. But what they don't realize is that phone is a direct link to the dope man. Direct link to the dope man and everything around it, right? And so the proper way, and see, there's a proper way of stopping the enabling, and this is what the professional helps you walk through, is the way to communicate your boundaries. Because, as I was talking about ending a relationship or putting a relationship on hold, it doesn't mean end it. We're not in the business of pulling families apart. The goal of an interventionist is to bring the family back together. So when we're saying, staying in a relationship with an addicted individual is unhealthy and you need to leave, but we're not talking like forever. It may end that if they're choosing not to get well and they're refusing to engage in wellness, then yeah, that relationship needs to, go away. But we're really talking about temporary removal of you from that situation, right? So when you're talking about these things, it's important to understand how to communicate them. Like if you're going to pull the car, right? If you're an addicted loved one and you provide transportation to them and you own the car and they're living in your house, you don't go to them and say, "You're a drug addict, get the hell out of here. I'm taking the keys. That's it. Taking the keys." You don't do that. You say, "Look, man, I love you. And this is really causing me a lot of pain. And I will not continue living my life in this pain. And I will not live another day knowing when I lie my head down at night that I'm actually enabling your demise. So I will not allow you to drive this car." End of story. End of story. Listen, I love you. When I married you forever, but I didn't sign up for this. Your refusal to get help and your behavior of staying in this addiction is causing me too much pain. That I love you so much that I will not sit here and watch you go through this pain. And I'm going to have to remove myself from this relationship until you decide to get well. You know, typically, families, when they're on their own and they're attempting this, what it ends up, it's a heated moment. It's a very emotionally driven event, and without a professional in the situation, what happens is, it's like, hey, F you, I'm out of here, get the hell out of here. You don't want to do that, right? It doesn't have to be that way. It's all in the power of the word. And you think about the power of the word. So it's all in what you say and how you say it. And that's what an intervention professional helps you with, is the wording. Identify the enabling behaviors, word your boundaries correctly, and execute that. And things change. So thanks for tuning in. You'll find this helpful. These are not easy things to apply to your life, and you may need some help with that. And that's what professionals are here to do, is to help guide you through that.